Katina Douglas, known to her friends as Tina, is a self taught, abstract, expressionist artist, educator, and creative visionary whose work is rooted in healing, faith, and transformation. She began painting in 2020, during one of the most challenging seasons of her life, using art as a tool to process grief, anxiety, and personal loss. What started as therapy quickly evolved into a powerful artistic voice that now resonates with collectors, communities, and audiences across the country. Known for her bold use of color, texture, and symbolism, Katina's work explores themes of resilience, identity, and emotional restoration. Her collections, including pieces inspired by scars, crowns, and spiritual strength, invite viewers to confront their own stories while embracing beauty and imperfection. Beyond the canvas, Katina is a dedicated kindergarten through fifth grade art educator and former Teacher of the Year who is passionate about creating meaningful, accessible art experiences for young minds. She is also the creator of Color Diary, a therapeutic coloring journal designed to support emotional wellness through creativity. Katina has exhibited her work in solo and group shows, including art appearances in Atlanta, Miami doing Art Basel, and various national platforms. Whether she's teaching in the classroom, speaking on healing through art, or creating her next piece, she remains committed to one mission: helping others turn their pain into purpose and their stories into something beautiful. Through every brushstroke and every conversation, Katina invites you to see that healing is not only possible, it can be art.
So, Katina,
Yes,
welcome
thank
to
you.
Drawing from the Soul.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Hey, we're glad to have you.
Oh, it's,
I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jen.
oh, I'm just saying I am so excited to finally meet the artist Katina, and especially hearing so much about how you connect healing through the art. So we're really excited to hear the story.
Yes, and I was really impressed with your bio and how it aligns with the mission of Drawing from the Soul. Um, and we're gonna learn about that today. So, instead of me jumping ahead, let's start with you sharing a little bit about yourself. Let's say all those in the Drawing from the Soul squad out here who don't know anything about you. Can you give us just give us a outline of where you are today and who you are?
Okay, so where I am today, I started this journey um, just purely selfish, like just trying to heal and trying to get through the pandemic. And I didn't, I never thought I was a painter. I thought I was a photographer. That was like, if you asked me 10 years ago what I wanted to do, it would be me being a photographer documenting the homeless or just street photography, basically. But today I kind of got thrown into a world where I am painting and showing my work and telling my story. And it's funny because I remember my grandmother used to always say, to whom much is given, much is required. And I never really understood that whole saying until now. Now I understand that all the things I went through, all the things that have got me to this place, it's important for me to share with other people and to show I guess, my journey, my testimony, because everything I've gone through is for other people, not just for me. But fast forward, it was 2020. I was at my house and my neighbor, he has a lot of things in his garage. He asked me as he was cleaning out during the pandemic, he said, "Would you like some of these paints for your students?" And I said, "Certainly." Like, I'll take them. But as days went on, we realized we weren't going back into the classroom, and I started getting really anxious and getting a lot of anxiety because we all were, like, trying to figure out what's going on in the world. So I just started pulling out my paints, and at the same time that we were going through the pandemic, I realized or found out I was losing my hearing, and that caused me anxiety. At the same time, I was going through a breakup. I had moved to Georgia in 2019. We broke up in 2020. So now I'm in this new place. I'm losing my hearing, and what I know and love, which is teaching, is no longer right now. So I just pulled out the paints and I started a series called The Color Girls. It was based on Chinese mythology, where there's a bird called the giant bird, and he has one eye and one wing, and the only way he can survive is with his partner bird, that has the other eye and the other wing. But it just made me think about the sense of community. It made me think about how we need others to survive. It made me think about all of my emotions. So I painted a girl in each color that I was going through, and I started with blue, the blue girl. And I think I did 6. And start with blue girl, which was sorrow, all the way to the brown girl, and brown represents, peace and calm. So by the time I got to the brown girl, I found myself feeling calm and peaceful, and I realized that, I was onto something with this whole painting thing. But at that time, it was still for me. It was still I just painted that for my own healing. And then a lady from the Zuckerman Museum of Art, she saw one of my pieces online and she asked me if I was willing to submit to their art show. And I told her, I said, "I'm not an artist. I'm an art teacher." And she was like, "Well, your work is poignant and I really like the meaning behind it and the story. So if you would like to submit, I think it would be a good thing." So I submitted, and that was actually the start of now I had been in shows before, like, I did something at the Smithsonian in DC with my photography, but I had never painted before. So when she said that, I was very insecure. I had this whole imposter syndrome of, why are you asking me to do this and I don't paint?" And she asked for my artist bio. I didn't have one because I didn't feel like I was an artist, I mean, a painter. Um, but that was the catalyst that got me to where I am today, um, with showing my work in galleries and selling my work to collectors. But it's not something that I ever thought I would be doing, nor did I want to do. It just happened.
Mm, That your story just right there is so piercing because so many people can, relate to that. Even when you said the imposter syndrome and how you reluctantly, went into art, and even the fact that you just started during this pandemic in 2020, just a few years ago. So I just want to say that first. I was excited already, but I didn't know the story. And to hear the story and how it's led you here. One thing I wanted to ask is when you said you started the series called For Color Girls.
It's called Color Girls.
Color Girls. Oh, wait,
Girls, yeah.
us of a certain generation, would think of. I thought you were gonna say something similar to For Colored Girls Who Considered Suicide When a Rainbow Wasn't Enough. That was a play way back in the '70s. So the fact that what you're saying and using still color and connecting it to girls and emotions, and I this piece right here, with the colors and how you assign meaning to those and how you use it for healing. I just want to say that's so exciting. and inspiring to so many people. I see so much of myself in you, and I'm sure it's many people too. So, did you create the definitions of what these colors mean in terms of blue being sorrow and brown being peace? Did you create that?
No, there is actually a book called The Color Bible. And I I use that a lot, but also just being an art teacher, and I teach my children, my students, how to use color for mood. A lot of that, it was, I guess it naturally came to me that I knew what the colors meant. And then being, I went to, my bachelor's is elementary education, but my undergrad was art. So just knowing some things about the art world and what colors can do to evoke emotion, it came naturally to me. I don't think about a lot of times, now when I'm painting, when I painted this piece, I wasn't thinking about the colors, but I'm starting to see the colors I choose are based on what I feel. And so, but I don't think about, I mean, when I did Color Girls, it was intentional. Those colors were intentional because it was helping me get through a hard time, and it was what I was feeling each moment. But typically, it's just me knowing what colors mean and how they evoke emotion.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask you, before we go into your origin story, the little Katina story. Um, let's say when you first started painting, okay, uh, a friend of yours gave you paint, and then you said you were a photographer, and then you just started painting, and then like Kim was saying, just in this short period of time, you've um kind of carved out a direction with your work. And what was your inspiration? Like, did you study? Well, as an art teacher, I guess you're already studying artists. But when you were sitting down, were finding yourself, like, who am I when I have these paints? Because when I look at it, like, I think it's very inspirational when I look at your work, especially now because I have more of an interest in um, shapes and colors and abstract work, being even less figurative and more expression expressionist. So, what was your inspiration to say, "This is the direction I'm gonna go"? Was it somebody that you saw, or was it just you just started moving the paint around and say, "Hey, I like that," and you just started to build on it?
So I'm a big fan of Modigliani, um, and Basquiat and Picasso. And a lot of my work tends to favor Basquiat or the tilted head of Modigliani or the shapes from Picasso. But in art school, they always tell you to find your voice. Um, I I think a lot of those elements are in my artwork, but I think what I stand on is scriptures. I stand on, like, I've had dreams before of a painting that comes to me. Um, I've had moments where I'm just in the word and I'm studying the word and I just can't get past it and I start painting. So I have series, one called Crown. It's based on Isaiah 61:3, beauty for ashes. Now, when someone looks at it, they see probably Basquiat tenants in it, but they don't know that on the cheek it says 61:3, and the crown is actually 7 tally marks that represents completion and perfection, and how God will take you from being broken and make you into something beautiful. So all of my pieces have something to do with spirituality. Um, but there's also those artists who have influenced me heavily. And I would say Basquiat would be probably the most influential because of how he was big on social issues, how he did not care about social norms. He did not care about perfection. someone was talking about this piece the other day, and they were saying, "How'd you get the line so perfect?" And I kept saying, "They're not perfect." I don't want one piece of my artwork to be perfect. Like, I want it to be an example of or symbolic of me as a person, yet me as an artist. So, I didn't the lines are not perfect. Like, if you look close, they're not perfect, and it's intentional. I don't want them to be perfect. I want it to be, "This is me. This is" this one right here is called Telios, and it's about, and it's based on a scripture in the Bible, Matthew, but it's about how God will take all your pieces and put them all together and make you complete. So, but is you're never perfect. He puts you together, but you're not perfect.
Mhm. So
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to ask because you said you mentioned it was Matthew, and I was wondering, do you actually write the scripture on your art, or is it all symbolic?
Both. Like, so, if you were to wash away all this paint, you would see the scripture underneath it, but I paint over it, but the scripture on there is typically, and sometimes I forget, like, sometimes I don't even remember, um, what the actual scripture is. I just know in that moment, during that time, I was standing on Matthew and about how God can get me he can put me back together. So, but for me, I will write it in pencil on there, and then I paint over it.
We refer to that as perfectly perfectly perfect imperfections, something like that. Because I know what you mean. Like, see, the person that said when they look at that, how do you get it so perfect? See what they're saying, because when they look at it, it looks um uh like perfectly designed.
Okay.
You know, but at the same time, as an artist, I can understand you basically drawing from the soul, like just feeling what what is in your heart and in your soul, and you're not worried about it being like a perfect circle. So in your mind, you see where, okay, this didn't get like that full half crescent or whatever, but to somebody else, it's perfect. So that's why I said that's those perfect imperfections. And
Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah, you nailed it. Nailed it. So let's so let okay, so we gotta that we're gonna come back to some of this, but I want to go back to your your start. Like, you know, where did you grow up? Did you have siblings? Did where what was the home like? Where'd the creativity come? Because even if you said that you were a photographer, there's a certain level of creativity that goes into that. Like, who inspired that? Um, were you into music? Was there music in the home, like live music, things of that nature? And other thing that I was curious about was how you became the art teacher before you even walked this journey of being the
Right.
actual artist. So I know that's a lot in there, but
I got you. Um, so I grew up in Indianapolis. My parents were divorced. My dad lived in Ohio, my mom in Indianapolis with me. Um, my mom was not so creative. And in fact, she didn't really get my my desire to create. And I did a lot of things that I know, like I painted my dad got my mom a brand new Cutlass Supreme, and it was baby blue, but it was so boring to me, so I decided to paint it. Um, we had a house built when my parents were still together, and we had cement steps that went up to the house and boring, so I decided to paint them burgundy. Um, but my mom didn't quite get it, and she never gave me the outlet to express myself. I I think because she just didn't understand it, but my dad, on the other hand, my dad, he had an album collection. He would play his vinyls while he's playing the bass guitar, so I had the music. I think he introduced me to art, um like, he would buy pieces. He definitely I went to museums, he took us to the Children's Museum a lot. I think the ins the he was the reason that I was intrigued by art, but then on the flip side of that, my mom was always saying, "No, that's not a good career," but she wanted me to teach. So, I'm from a family of, my aunt's a principal, like, we have teachers in my educators in my family. Um, so I went into teaching as elementary teacher, um, but I always had this desire to tell stories. So my dad would always give me the latest camera, and I started taking pictures, and he takes pictures a lot too. So it was always, I guess, it was my way of telling a story. And fast forward, I went through a period with my family where we were homeless, my my children and I. And when after that experience, that camera was the thing that all of a sudden I wanted to tell the story of people who were homeless. Um I wanted to put a face or humanize people who were living on the street because we didn't have to live on the street, but it changed my perspective of how, as an everyday person, you walk by these people who are on the street, and they are college educated, they have served in the military, um, and it's like one illness, one divorce that can get put you in that in that situation. So, I started getting to know people in DC, filming them, and then, I made a deal, like, "If you let me take your picture and tell your story, I will give you whatever money I make from the sale of these, photographs." But that landed me into a an exhibit that I didn't even anticipate during that time at the Smithsonian. But I don't know, I always had this desire to tell stories, and now I'm telling my story through painting. Before, it was through photography, and I think a lot of that came from, my dad. My dad showing me the art world.
Uh, First of all, I wanted to when you said you're from Indianapolis, I now I see why I was excited. Um, I'm from Indiana when you were saying the Children's Museum, and I know people other places had cutlasses, but, I'm thinking of it as like, "I seen that cutlass, you painted it," you know? No, but I knew it, you just really seem like a reflection, and again, to so many people as well. I'm wondering, where did your artistic side, like you said, came from your father? Where did your space come from?
My mother.
Mhm.
My mother, for sure, and my grandmother. Very 2 very, I I got to watch them go through unthinkable things, and still have such a strength and such a, joy. Like, my mother was always laughing, my grandmother was so happy, and I think that stuck with me. And to like, today, I don't participate in a traditional church, um, but I feel like I have a relationship with God that, like, I feel like I'm one of his favorites, and I'm sticking to that. Um, I feel like he has carried me through so many things, and because of that, I wanna share I feel like I have a responsibility to share that, through my art. Now, before I did a talk at Buckhead Art and Company, and I was telling the people I never before this, I would never talk about this. I would never talk about being homeless, losing my hearing, um, the things I've gone through, I would never, but my art is kind of forcing me to do that because people wanna know, like, why did you paint that? And it forces me to share, "Okay, this is what happened to me, and this is why I painted that." But it's a healing that comes from that, and also the response I get from other people, like, "Oh my god, that happened to me too."
Exactly. And, I remember when you said you started out doing this for your own healing, and then, it evolved, and you see that it helps other people to heal as well. And I say this a lot, but this is another example of one of my favorite sayings. It says, "The sun doesn't shine for itself." And so I see you as a beautiful blend and balance of both, of everything that came together to get you here. The faith, the art, the faith, you had to have the resilience to get through. And then the stories came from that, and the heart is healing. I wanted to know, how did you end up going to art school, and what did how did that add to? I know you were referencing certain iconic artists. So could you share with us about that?
So, okay, and when it was time for me to go to undergrad, my mom was with me, and she said, "Well, what's your major?" And I want I said, "Art," and she was like, "No, no, ma'am." So I said, "Okay, education." So I do education, but I have in undergrad, I did all the art courses, the ceramics and the art history, and I loved it. But I went into teaching. I taught 2nd grade, I taught 6th grade English, 5th grade, and those times were like I won't trade that. They made me an amazing teacher, but I always knew I was missing something. So my mother gets diagnosed with cancer, and at the same time, I'm going through my divorce, and I just realized life is short and I want to be happy. So I enrolled in the Academy of Art University in San Francisco. I did the online master's program, and I started with I'm going to be a photographer. So I went through photography, the process, but when you go the even though you're doing photography, you have to paint a little bit. I hated it. You have to there's all these other courses you have to take that I just was not into. So I went ahead and just I did my photography part, and then I switched to art education. Once I switched to art education, I transitioned from the classroom into the art room, and it was like I realized this is what I was meant to do. And just teaching my students and getting them motivated, and they get so excited, and I realize after grade 3, that's when they lose that whole, "Oh, I love my art and I don't care what you think," to now they're worried about what other people think. And to be able to be in this space, because people always tell me, "You should move on to high school or you should teach college." But to be in a space where I get to mold little children and build their confidence. And then when they leave me, I have students who are still saying to me, they're messaging me on the little school apps like, "I'm still drawing and I'm still doing this and I'm still," because they have this confidence where they don't care what anyone else thinks. I didn't have that. And I want that for my kids. And I also want people always there's this they always say, when you teach art, you're just cutting and pasting. I want like, my children, we do art history, we do I teach them things that most, elementary art teachers are not even tackling,
Mhm.
because I want more for them, and my expectations are high, and because I taught in the classroom, I know a lot of what they need, so I'm not just teaching perspective, I'm teaching, You need to know these angles.
Mhm.
You need to know the vocabulary, because I know what they need outside of art. So, I hope I answered your question. I feel like I just kept
Oh, out really, you really did. I could talk forever just about what you just shared. I know Daoud has some more things that he wants to cover, but I just want to give much respect to you again as a teacher and as an educator. And I see how your mother steering you in that direction still had a purpose. But so many can connect with you. I'm in school in the school as well. I see K through the elementary and how that's such a impactful time. So whoever has you is really blessed to have.
you.
Yeah, but well, first of all, congratulations for having the Teacher of the Year award.
Thank you, thank you.
That,
I
that
was excited.
that's a big deal. That's a big deal.
Mm.
And Um, I like what you said about teaching the young people what I guess what they would say is advanced because really, um, there's a lot of things we can teach children at an early age, and I think we sometimes dumb it down, thinking children can't learn something when they have the ability to
Still
excel beyond what they're taught on a daily basis.
right.
Like when I had my art school in Philly like years ago, I had different age groups and I was teaching them gesture drawing and
Yeah.
composition, perspective. So by the time they got to high school, they said they already knew these
I knew it, yes.
because when I was younger, I didn't learn that stuff till I got to high school. But when I think back, like I would have loved to be in your class. I've probably been a whole different person now. Especially when it came to like the art history, a lot of those things I didn't learn till later on, and then really have an appreciation for it, like somebody teaching me in a way where I can see how it's applicable to my life, not something separate outside of me,
Right.
but something that's more a part of me. And the other aspect that I know you didn't really get into it yet, but when you were talking about, your mom being diagnosed with cancer at the same time you're going through the divorce and then losing well, learning about your hearing. Um, these are things that to me what was separating drawing from the soul, because there's a lot of drawing channels, you can learn to be a dope artist here and there. Yeah, the it's that's all out there in the internet space, so people can really learn that. But you know what inspired me to really do the Drawing from the Soul podcast was for artists and creatives to share some of these stories that might be difficult for them. And it's not to sit people down on a therapy couch, but it's to help those who the things that you went through that you have been able to work through it, and you may still be working through it. There's other people there in the high point of that right now. We just talked to a brother and he was talking about how he you know, how his divorce impacted his life. And I was saying, yeah, man, that's like a death, the separation of the hearts. And as a creative, I don't really hear people when artists get interviewed, they talk about their art. They don't talk about how they feel and how do you come
Right.
back, like when you lose a loved one, but you still have an assignment to finish. How do we finish that? We may just talk about the assignment and the technique, and I use this color, that color, and you want everybody to think, yeah, everything's all good. Yeah, then I got this award and that award. But then when you go home into your quiet space, you're still dealing with grief. You're still dealing with something that, like you were saying, you realize the finality of life. Like, oh man, this is real now. But I still have to create. I still have to move forward. So how do we help those people out there who are dealing with that now? And that's why I think Drawn from the Soul is important because I want the artist to heal from within so they can continue to create.
Right.
I mean, and be their best self, not just sell them on, hey, you could be a cool artist and make money and this and that. But I want them to last a long time physically and mentally. So then they can inspire like what you're doing, helping younger children. Um, so yeah, that
So,
they say that much.
well, I do think, like, this is important, your podcast. I asked my students, at the beginning of the school year and the end of the school year, "Why art?" And at the beginning, they always say, "So I can draw, so I can color, so I can," and then at the end, I have these little frames where you can, slide the artwork in the hallway. And I ask the kids why art is important. And at the end of the school year, they say, because it makes me feel happy, or it gives me peace, or it helped me get through my parents' divorce. Or so by the end, they understand a whole new element of how art is so impactful and how it can help you. And I know it's important for other color theory and all those things, but the fact that art is one of those things whether it's music, painting, whatever, um, that can literally heal you, heal your soul. And I want my students to know that at a very early age to carry them through, which is what you're saying about drawing with the soul. Like, is I think now at 53, it's the most important therapy we have.
Mhm. Absolutely. So, mm, when you reference, like I was said about having lost your hearing, and there a testimony that you would like to share about that? Because I'm curious, because I can relate to that as well. Many years ago, I lost hearing in one ear. It did mostly return, but is there something that you would like to share about that experience?
Um, I well, I would say, for I guess when I first found out, there was a lot of anxiety attached to it, and then it became, I guess, vanity. Like, now I have these hearing aids, and I didn't want that, and I was young. Um, but what I think has come from it, um, is the ability to overcome. Like, I use it, with my students, in terms of, um, I like, they all when I get new students, they always look at my ears, and I'm like, "What's that thing in your ear?" But I want them to see that I can have hearing loss, and I can still do whatever it is that I need to do, and that doesn't define me. That doesn't, yeah, it looks different, but at the same time, I'm okay. And if you have any type of handicap or whatever, you're okay. And it doesn't make you any less than a person. But it definitely, for a minute, it kind of shook me. But I poured myself into my painting. I poured myself into, and I would lose myself hours on end, just trying to get past the fact that this is who I am now, and this is what I have to deal with, and this is my new reality.
Mm,
So,
okay. I'm sure there was scriptures, many scriptures that helped you
men
emanate uh, things that came forth from that as well. So, um, there is so much that is so inspiring, about your story. How do you share you say you like to tell stories with your artwork now? How do you present and share your story in your artwork? What does that look like?
I'm sorry, it broke up a little bit. You said, "How do I present my artwork?"
Meaning, you said you like to tell stories.
Mhm.
I How do you share your story or with groups, with audiences, while you're also sharing your artwork? What does that experience look like?
So a lot of time, and this is hard for me because I honestly don't like to be the center of attention. So, like in my classroom, I could talk all day long. But when it comes to my art, it comes from a vulnerable place, and I had to learn how that people are just curious. People are just they want to know the story behind it. And so whether it's hanging in an art gallery and someone saying, "Well, what does this mean to you?" That's my opportunity to tell them the story of where this piece came from. Like, I have a piece called Scars, and I never told anyone why I painted that, but I knew like, I know the story. But when I had an artist talk one time, and no one ever asked me, but I had an artist talk one time, and a lady said, "I'm very intrigued by this piece because on one side of the piece is brown skin, the other side is it." People often say it looks like hieroglyphics, but it's just little white marks that are strategically put on one side of the face. And she said, "I'm very intrigued, and I want to know, like, why did you put the marks on one side of the face?" And I didn't want to share the story, but I felt like it was a good opportunity, and that God strategically put that woman there to ask that story. So I had to tell her that m most of my artwork is like a self-portrait to me. It's my self-portrait, something I've gone through. But that particular piece was when my mom was sick with cancer. She found out, in 2011, and then by 2012, she had passed away. But during that time period, I was going through my divorce, and I lived an hour and a half from my mother. Every weekend, I would have to go take care of my mother, and while I'm taking care of my mother, um, I developed acne on one side of my face. And I it was the doctor said it was stress, it was whatever, but I just after after that happened, after my mom passed away, my face cleared up or whatever, but I still have scars on my face that I don't know if other people notice it as much as I do, but I noticed the scarring on this side of my face, and it's a constant reminder of a time period that I went through that was hard, but it's also a constant reminder of the goodness of God and how he can get you from horrible circumstances, like seeing your mother take her last breath to going through your divorce and dealing like trying to raise 4 children all by yourself. It's a reminder of where he can get you. And while I look in the mirror sometimes, I'm like, I don't love how that looks, but it's a reminder. So I shared that piece and I told that story. And then at the end of that whole conversation, a lady said, "Oh my god, like, I never would have seen that because that piece looks so beautiful to me, and it resonated with me, but I never would have thought that that was the story," she said, "but now that I know the story, I love the piece even more." So, just just being vulnerable and sharing my story behind each piece, and a lot of times on Instagram, I will write, like, what each piece means, but I think it's a difference when I actually say it and when I talk to people and I'm being vulnerable.
Well, Dawood, say one more thing, right now. I Tina, I wanna say that I'm one of those women in the audience who would say, "Oh my god," to hear your story, and I'm saying that to you to encourage you to continue to share when you're comfortable those stories because, they resonate with people for different reasons. So I am one of those people who, hearing your story, my mother just passed not even 2 months ago, from cancer. And, I had lost my went through a divorce. I, have 4 children, and I used to have acne so bad, and most people are like, "Really?" It's like, "Yes." You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying as a testimony, to encourage how much you, inspire me, just by standing and sharing your story and being so beautiful. Scars are all because no one can even see them. No one, hardly even see for hearing aids, and you're 53 and you're absolutely striking. So I just want to encourage you to keep sharing
True.
healing for you and it's healing for other people who can relate, to aspects of your experience, including myself.
And I also, to piggyback on top of that,
I'm sorry about your mom.
Thank you. And to you as well.
yes, I I I was thinking about what you were saying in terms of oh man, like now I think with a lot of with social media and things of that nature, a lot of us become I was just trying to think of how to phrase it, more insecure, and then we don't really step into our power. A lot of us are more powerful than we actually think, because just like you said in the beginning, having the imposter syndrome, think about how many people online feel as though, they're probably faking it till they make it when they're not faking it. You really are great. You really do possess something special that you're given. And we always think it's outside of us. It's somebody else. When we see somebody else doing something great, that's a given. Well, that's such and such. They're great. But then we're afraid to say that we're great. We're afraid to step into our greatness. Um, and when you were saying like how you when you shared your story, it gave more people insight into like your actual piece and then who you are as a person. And I think that story was great because that, what you're sharing today, like Kim says, inspires her. It's inspiring me because, there's things I'm learning about you. I didn't know because, I know you as the artist, the person doing the art. And I had to learn those things as well because there was a time I didn't want to say a lot of things. I didn't want to share personal stories about myself because number one, I as a kid, I was painfully shy. I say pathetically shy, and that did carry into my adult years. I mean, I'll speak to crowds because I have to, but I don't seek that.
Right.
It learned that it was helpful to a lot of people when I was more vulnerable about things that I went through. And I realized like, oh, it's not really about me. It's not really about me. But when I share this story, somebody comes back and says how it helped them get through something, some turbulent times. So, yeah, I'm really sorry to hear about your mother and you having to be there to see her take her last breath. And at the same time, to be able to be there
It's a blessing. Yes.
blessing as well. My parents I was not in that space, and I sometimes wonder what would it have been like if I was
Yeah.
there, But, life is life, and, we take where we are and we keep building and we don't give up,
Right.
you know? I meant to say this earlier because when you said, you the like 3rd grade is right around that time when children they transition from, "Hey, I just like to I become self-conscious."
Right.
And then that becomes their and this is what I learned from Kim, that becomes their story in life. Like as a small child, they make this story up about being self-conscious, something that happens then and that carries all the way into their 30s and 40s. And it takes a lot to shake that out of them, but you're helping them at this early age to break free of that, to stay basically mentally free at that age, moving forward. And in this age now, the digital age, and we're bombarded with everybody else's thoughts, is very important for the young people to be able to create for themselves and think for themselves.
Yeah, sometimes I hear adults say, "Man, I can't even draw a stick figure." And I think, if you had been in my art class, if you had just been in my class, I would you would be past that, but oh well. Mhm.
Oh man. Yeah, just oh, go ahead.
For adults?
I'm sorry?
You ever have classes for adults?
I have been asked that, but I have not done that yet. I don't feel like I am equipped, and I know that's that whole imposter syndrome again, but I have not done that yet, but I have been asked many times, "Can we have adult classes?"
I mean, I understand if you're more connected with the children because I feel that way as well, but know that you are equipped to do that as well with the adults. You're definitely equipped because, your stories that they relate to, the healing aspect of it, on that level. And so many people, everybody's looking for a therapist or counselor or whatever, but ultimately they're looking for healing. And as you say, you said that, basically that art is one of the highest forms, of opportunities or pathways to healing. So
Right.
yeah, I see that.
Okay, I might reconsider.
I think it'd be great.
But first,
Sounds Um, do you when you talking about prayer, do you think of the actual process of creating as prayer or meditation, or how do you connect the two?
So I think of the actual art of creating as worship more than prayer, if that makes sense. So I definitely will have moments where I am going through and I am just leaning on God in those moments. But me picking up my paintbrush is more of me saying, "Okay, God, I trust you." And this is what comes from that that trust. It's what comes on this canvas is me saying, "Okay, I was broken, you put me back together, and I thank you." So, I think the prayer part is I mean, I am praying, I am, but I in my prayer journal, I'm writing what thing I'm struggling with, and then I leave it to God, and then I go to my canvas.
Well, once again, I'm inspired and going to think what you just said, which is I trust you and see what form of worship comes forth. And that's a class in and of itself, for all ages.
Mhm. And that's some like, I'm still I listen, that is a struggle still, but when I get to my canvas and that whatever it was I was asking God for, that's the thing that I'm now saying, "Okay, you got it." Because and I told my daughter I have 4 children, but I told my daughter the other day, um, what we know for sure what we know for sure is that God has us. I know that for sure, and I know for sure He was always gonna make a way for me. I might not like it, I might not like His answer, but He's gonna I know that for sure. So and when I look at my paintings and I see how they manifest, I'm like, "Okay."
Well, just trust.
Yeah, just trust them.
Can you? Oh, book.
No, no, go, Kanka.
Well, I was gonna say, you were a photographer, and I'm sure you still are, and now you are a painter, a fine artist. And what do you? And I know you went into painting reluctantly. How do you compare the two forms of expressions now that you're, you know, solidly on the side of being a painter?
I think so they're very similar in the sense that with my camera, I would capture a story, but it was something I could capture like, I could pause a moment in time. Um, but I would tell stories of people. I'm not like, I can't do realistic, but if I could, the images in my photography would be on my canvas. A lot of the stories that I like when I have 2 different so, with my photography, I would meet people I used to live in, the DC well, Northern Virginia area, but I would go to DC, and I would meet homeless people, and we become friends, and then I would, like, document their life, and so that part of it was more it was me wanting to share stories about people who you just would not normally meet or you might look down on them. My paintings are more all about me. Like, I don't like to be on the other side of the camera. I don't want you to take my picture. I'm awkward. I don't I just I just don't like that. But I like taking pictures of other people and sharing their stories. And because I'm not a realistic artist, that's the easiest form that I can do to share their stories. But the painting is more about just me. It's my own personal form, like I said, of worship.
Mm.
So
So, can you tell us about this color diary? Let's talk about the color diary. For those out there who know nothing about it, let's walk them through.
okay. So Kim asked me if I ever teach adults or if I've ever thought about teaching adults. I had so many questions. Every time I did anything, people would ask me why I chose my colors. How did I come up with that particular painting? And so I started trying to figure out or create a lesson plan, I guess, of how how do I walk through this? How do I tell someone what my process is? And I always start first with what's on my heart. And so then if I'm writing in my prayer journal what's on my heart, then I think about what scriptures I can find to go with that. And then for me, I think automatically like what color would match that feeling. And then I would sketch out something. Like, what am I feeling? I might sketch it out. I might do it a couple times. Like, okay, this doesn't feel right, or this feels like what I'm thinking. And then I draw out the piece. And so in the color diary, I was like, well, I could just put it all together and show people um, what I do, my process. And then I even have a couple examples of the artwork in the color diary so that people can see, okay, this is how this came about. But basically, it was me trying to show other people my process and then let them try it. And I was very surprised at the response. I was very surprised. I don't like I think that's my baby.
Yeah, something really to be proud of. And so, anyone can now get this color diary.
They can. It's on Amazon. It's on Amazon. I've had so many people s- text me or DM me um examples of what they done, and they always start with it doesn't look like your work, but what I love is that they are actually um they're reflecting, they're praying, they are using my color diary for their healing, and they're actually doing artwork, and I love it. I love it.
You know, that's the whole workshop, right? That's the whole.
Look, now that I can do. I can do that workshop.
Oh my. Now, I noticed that there is a piece of art right behind your head. Could you tell us about that one?
Um, I'm Dinah Ross.
Oh, okay. And I
So I am a big Dinah Ross fan, and so what I will do, if there's something that I want that I cannot find, I will create my own like t-shirt or whatever. So I did Dinah Ross. I did Janet Jackson's down below. You can't see her. I did Chadwick Boseman. But it was funny because I did them for myself because those people were influential in my world. Dinah Ross is my favorite. I watched every movie. I know her songs. I like that's my girl. But I made a Dinah Ross t-shirt because I wanted to go to her concert, which I didn't end up going to. But people kept asking me, "How can I buy that t-shirt?" But is that's my girl. So
I question we all want to know. And Janet Jackson one, and and all of it. But that's beautiful.
thank you. Thank you. I love her. I feel like I don't know, she reminds me of myself in a lot of ways. Awkward. Um, I don't know. She just I really love Dinah Ross.
And we see it, Diana Ross is not awkward. We see her as iconic, so that's how we see you as well.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah.
And sometimes it takes the outward perspective to see ourselves within.
That's
Because
true.
as man, I wouldn't just say as creators, I just think as human beings, we know every little detail about ourselves. We know all our flaws, we know where we messed up, we know where, we need to fine tune. And so when we show up, we're thinking everybody sees everything we saw. That's not the case. Other people, they look at it and say, "Wow, that is that's a powerful person right there." You know what I mean? You're like, "Who? What you talking about?" You know what I mean? It's like, dude, what, me powerful? You have to accept it,
Yeah.
and you just step into it. So, so that's really great because I you give that um what I've been gathering from you is that this is what you've been inspiring other people to see is that power within themselves, the power to heal, coming back from grief, and even like how you were bringing the humanity to the homeless. that they're not just, people on the street. They're people with stories to tell. And like you were saying, one life event can put somebody right in the same place. So, yeah, hats off to you for your journey and all the things that you accomplished. And uh, that means there's much more to come, which brings us to the success and perspectives. Your next phase. So now you're doing gallery shows. I saw you, in the gallery shows and selling your artwork. And within a couple years time, that I think that's really good progress. You're building your name. And so let's talk about that. What surprised you most about this? Um, and has that changed your relationship with your creative journey in any way?
So, I was very surprised. I did a show in, I think it was 2024, 2024, and I ended up I gained an agent, and wonderful, wonderful person. I just, wasn't anticipating the amount of work it takes to get into these spaces. And I think it kind of, it was overwhelming, but it was exciting. But I'll say this, I'm no longer with my agent right now because I knew I needed to have it was stifling, I think, my creative journey and my healing. And I just needed I need a break. I needed a break to just relax and paint when I wanted to paint and just focus on me. And she completely understood that. And she was like, whenever you're ready, come back. But in this time period, as soon as I made that decision, which was extremely hard for me, I sold 2 pieces. I'm doing a live painting this weekend at the Beltline. So it's now I get to do what I wanna do, when I wanna do it, how I wanna do it, and I think that's it gives me a sense of peace, and I don't feel rushed. I don't feel like I have to it because she never when you have an agent, it's not that they're saying you have to do these things or else, but I always in the back of my mind felt like I had to create for her because, she's working to make money, and if I'm not working, she's not making money, but that's not like, I just needed to relax a little bit. So, I'm kind of on this weird, I'm gonna call it a hiatus where I'm just doing me right now, but it's weird because I don't have her, but I'm still getting, um, opportunities, but I pick and choose, like, do I wanna do it? Yes or no? So, I don't know, and I don't know, like, what my vision is now for my artwork. Um, I think if if I had my ideal world, I would love to have a show where it would just be about the healing and about, um, I don't know, like, just talking to people, talking to women, like, I don't want it to be about the sale of the art, if that makes sense.
Right.
Just more of the stories.
And I would like to say that you absolutely can do that. I respect the fact that you followed your guide in this current chapter that you're in, and it reminds me of like artists who, let's say, a recording artist, and they may have put out a great album, freshman album, sophomore album. It's like, okay, we need another album, but in between, it's necessary to take time, to heal,
Yeah.
to create the stories and to continue your own evolution as well. And so, I commend you for doing that and for living your life right now. I know you said, I don't know. It's just something we say, but you do know. And I respect and commend you for standing on that. And as you see the opportunities continue. So about the live painting that's coming up, is that something that you've done before?
No. And of course, like, I'm nervous. I went to, Hunt City Market, and I went into they have a little gallery. It's an Asian gallery in Ponce City Market, and I was looking admiring his art, and then we got in a conversation, and I said, "I'm also an artist." And he said, "Really? Share your Instagram." So I did, and then he asked me would I be willing to do a live painting, and I told him I don't paint, I said, "I don't paint live." And he said, "It's okay, you can do it." So I am gonna do it from 4 to 9. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm gonna finish a piece. I've been working on a third piece to this one. So I'm just gonna take that one and I'm gonna work on it while I'm there and we'll see what happens.
Well, it reminds me of the story you told earlier on about how when you were asked to submit your work and you're like, I don't do that.
I say that a lot.
Yeah.
I say that a lot. I don't do that. Do you teach adult classes? I don't do that. Live painting, I don't do that. Somehow I end up doing that, but that's because God is funny.
Exactly. So I just encourage you to remember what you say in the stories, and then also, like you said a little earlier about how you just pick up the paintbrush and you trust.
Yes.
And so I look forward to see, what comes out of that experience in live painting because you're certainly equipped for that too. So I you breadcrumbs in terms of people, inviting you into these, different chapters I see are very um anointed, seem like divinely led opportunities for you that you may not have just gone towards, but these people are playing their part with inviting you into things you may not see.
Right. That's true. I would agree with that. He always puts me in these places, in these spaces, and I'm uncomfortable, but I do it because he told me to do it.
Yep, and greatness comes out of being uncomfortable. Go ahead.
Right.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, isn't there a scripture that says obedience is greater than sacrifice?
Mm,
Through and stepping up into the opportunity.
that's true.
Indeed.
That's true.
Yeah, and yeah, because that's why I said, I wanted to have you on the show because I saw that and I said, and I didn't even know like a lot of the other details that you shared with us today, but just overall, I liked your professional demeanor, like it's saying that you come from a family of educators, because my parents were educators, and there's a certain demeanor that you have that very professional, um, and artistic and creative. And I think that's why it's not a surprise that you can switch gears and say, "Hey, you know what? Yeah, I haven't done this before. I'll do it." Because we're not one thing. You know what I mean? Like we are many things as human beings. And what you tap into, you just discover another level of greatness. You're just peeling back that onion. And even the gentleman at the Pine City Market, he saw something in you and he kind of pushed you a little bit. He said, "You could do it. Come on, you can do it." And there, you know what I mean? So who knows? Now, while you're there, somebody else is gonna may walk up to you to have you step into something else that you didn't think was your zone. But
Right.
it all belongs to you. There's nothing that's not outside of you. So that's the message that I want other people to walk away from because you're an example of that. And this is incredible. So in closing out, so what would you say? I ask people, what does drawing from the soul mean to you?
Mm. Drawing from the soul means telling your story. It means being a teacher. It means I'm going to share what I've gone through so that I can help other people. It means healing. It means leaving a legacy and leaving a piece of myself to my children, to my family, to to other people. It just I would say it just means creating out loud, just sharing who you are with people, and it's coming from the depths of your soul.
Nice. Ken, do you have any closing?
Well, I really said about leaving a piece of yourself and, just one to mark the fact that you were here, and we have a story to tell. And they say, I don't know the full saying, but the saying in terms of, to believe something, what they say, write a book or plant a tree or, paint a picture and tell your story and leave it in a way that it can still continue to inspire and touch people for generations. So I commend you for doing that and continuing to stay open to the other ways in which it will continue to take shape.
I love how you say things. What was the thing you said about the sun?
The sun doesn't shine for itself.
That's my new I'm gonna tell that to my students.
Yeah.
First day of school. I love that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Is there any parting words you want to leave to any aspiring artists, children, adults, and we have elders out here who are also just getting started in their tapping into these gifts that they always had, and maybe for decades they just thought it was the domain of someone else.
Um, I guess I would say just pick up the brush or pick up the pencil or do something, whether it's pottery, anything. We are born creators. And I feel like if we don't create, a part of you, I feel like a part of you just dies. That creative side if you don't use it. So I just anything, sewing, pottery, photography, painting, do something to feed your soul.
Mhm. Absolutely. Thank
Perfect. That's a
and
great.
then off from this.
That was a perfect closing remark. I'm gonna have your socials up here, so you don't have to worry about that right now. I'm gonna share that on the screen throughout the interview. So, Katina, Tina Douglas,
Yes.
pleasure to have you. Uh,
Like,
we 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 know that you are going to be successful in the years to come. Um, and I can see a whole crew of successful young people coming up behind you. Say, we learned from geek,
I love when that happened.
and is it's the gift.
That's the
Gift in life. You got the children, you have your family, and even with all the things that you would say are losses in life are still the things that build greatness within you. And I like using that term greatness because that is what we have, and we have to remind ourselves that's who we are. So, on that note, thanks again for joining Drawing from the Soul. And for those out there, please like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let's get these. This is still a show in progress in terms of like we're still building it up. So we need people to share it out. Say something in the comments. Share your experience and tell us how this interview has impacted you. And from there, I would like to say thank you. And for those out there, just keep drawing from the soul. Peace.